Allegedly, Ken Urker, Gypsy's baby daddy, is door dashing because Gypsy Rose doesn't trust him enough to bartend. Now, heavy allegedly on the door dashing, somebody posted a picture that does look like Ken. I know Ken recently was talking about how he had a job, but he would not disclose what it was.
Hey, no job, Cam. How's that Ubering and DoorDashing going for ya? You making the big bucks in the car? Listen, I'm not saying that's a career, but you keep at it, you're going to make the big bucks, I'll tell you. DoorDash, Uber, Uber Eats, DoorDash people, DoorDash food, DoorDash whatever the hell you want. No job, Ken's just Uber and Christy back and forth for me.
For the longest time, Ken Urker has kept his job under wraps. No one knew exactly where he worked or what he did for a living. He never talked about it publicly, and maybe that was intentional. But now, a linked photo has surfaced, showing someone who looks a lot like Ken doing DoorDash deliveries. And just like that, the speculation began. Could this really be Ken's new job? And if so, why was it leaked? Was someone trying to embarrass him? Or was it something else entirely? If Ken is indeed working for DoorDash, it wouldn't be surprising that he'd want to keep it quiet. We've seen before how much he dislikes public scrutiny, especially when it comes to his employment. But now that the secret is supposedly out, the big question is, will he quit? And if he does, what does that mean for Gypsy and their daughter? Because let's be real, Gypsy has always wanted Ken close. We've seen how much she prioritizes their time together. She even left their baby at home just to be with him. So if his job was something that kept him busy and away from her, this situation may actually work in her favor.
Allegedly, Ken Urker, Gypsy's baby daddy, is door dashing because Gypsy Rose doesn't trust him enough to bartend. Now, heavy allegedly on the door dashing, somebody posted a picture that does look like Ken. I know Ken recently was talking about how he had a job, but he would not disclose what it was. This is in an interview. Also, his mother said he would get very mad if she disclosed what his new job was. This is just an example of the control GRB has, and she puts on who she is with. She is so worried that Ken will meet women, and she is very insecure, despite what she puts out on the internet. Allegedly. I've said from the beginning that I don't think Gypsy Rose is making that much money from her reality show. I think her real bread and butter is the interviews that she does. And that is probably why Ken is working. But here's the thing, not everybody wants their order delivered or left at the door. So I don't know how long this gig is going to last.
Not long ago, Ken mentioned that he had found a job in Metairie, which led him to get a place there so he could be closer to work. This was a significant step, marking a shift towards stability for him, especially now that he had a child to support. When Gypsy had just given birth, she spent a week at his place, bringing along Raina, Ken's mother, to help out with nursing the baby. For Ken, this was more than just a job. It was about proving he could be a responsible provider for his daughter and trying to establish himself as an independent adult separate from Gypsy's influence. Interestingly, despite acknowledging that he was employed, Ken never disclosed the details of his job. His last known role was as a bartender. But after that, things became murky. Then, out of nowhere, a leaked photo surfaced, showing a man resembling Ken working as a DoorDash driver. This immediately fueled speculation. Was this his new job? And if so, why had he kept it a secret? Was it simply privacy, or was he worried about judgment from Gypsy and the public? Ken has always been extremely private about his employment. He's mentioned before that he doesn't like the idea of his job being made public, especially given Gypsy's controversial past and how that could impact his workplace. In August, during a live chat with Sam Morbid, he admitted he had a job but refused to disclose where. He worried that the moment people found out, they would track him down, possibly leading to unwanted attention or even harassment.
Raina said that Ken's working. I believe it. Ken ain't got a job. He wouldn't admit what it was, but I know what it is. You want to know? He's babysitting. He bought a house up in Meltree, and Gypsy had the baby staying with him. He's the nanny. He's babysitting his baby.
Gypsy's paying Kenan to watch the babies, and then she just visits him like they're a whole ass families. Baby's living with Kenan. Raina admitted that. Kenan has a jab. Kenan has a jab. He really does. He's a whole ass babysitter for the baby. He's babysitting Rad's baby. He's so good to them. That's so nice of you, Kenan. I really appreciate that. Taking her on days we can't. Because you know what? Between the three of us, we need you, Ken. We needed you like that to be the babysitter. That's why Gypsy hired you, okay? So I'm really glad that we were able to help you get a job. And I hope everything stays going great. We'll see you next weekend.
And now it seems like those fears have come true. The last time Ken's job was exposed, there was a noticeable change. He suddenly stopped working almost immediately after, and he began spending more time with Gypsy, attending interviews, appearing on panels, and being more involved in her public life. It was as if his career and personal choices were always at the mercy of his relationship with Gypsy. If history is repeating itself, and this leak causes him to quit DoorDashing, the question remains, what happens next? Will he once again shift into the background of Gypsy's life, accompanying her wherever she goes? Will he abandon his efforts to provide for himself and his child just to maintain peace in his relationship? And if so, is that truly what he wants? Or is he feeling backed into the corner, forced to follow a path he's not entirely comfortable with? Gypsy has a pattern. She wants Ken close. The more available he is, the more control she has over their dynamic.
Hey, no job Cam, how's that Ubering and DoorDashing going for ya? You making the big bucks in the car? Listen, I'm not saying that's a career, but you keep at it, you're going to make the big bucks, I'll tell you. DoorDash, Uber, Uber Eats, DoorDash people, DoorDash food, DoorDash whatever the hell you want. No job Ken's just Uber and Christy back and forth for me. She has the stuff I need. When Christy needs to sneak out and get the goods, she hires No Job Ken. She goes through the app and it brings No Job Ken there, and then he drives her wherever she needs to go, down that back alley. I'm not saying Ken is shady, but he's definitely not bartending. J-O-B. Just over broke. Go ahead with your bad self, boo-boo.
If Ken is jobless, that means he's spending more time with her, and she gets to dictate how their relationship moves. We saw it before when he was unemployed. He was constantly by her side, joining her on lives, defending her, and making public appearances. But whenever he got a job, the pattern shifted. Gypsy wasn't always thrilled about it. Remember when Ken worked as a bartender? He didn't stay long in that role. The moment Gypsy got pregnant, he left his home in Texas and moved to Louisiana to be with her. After relocating, he reportedly got another bartending job. But again, it didn't last. Why? Because soon enough, we started seeing him everywhere with Gypsy. He was at interviews like the Nick Vile podcast, and he even traveled with her to San Francisco when she was invited as a panelist at the university. It was clear that when he was unemployed, Gypsy had full access to his time and presence, something that seemed to work in her favor.
Now, I want you to look closely at this picture. Ken's body language is, he's giving her the type of hold that you'd give a buddy in a picture. Look at the way his shoulders are up, his stance. This is not an affectionate picture. There's very much distance between their body, and that's how all their pictures look. I think anyone that has really watched Gypsy Rose and Ken, you know that Ken is not into her. And honestly, I don't think he's really into women, period. And we already have been down that road and we know why. This is the way you'd hold your little brother in a picture, or your dad, or maybe a friend, not a lover.
The reality is, when Ken doesn't have a job, Gypsy can use him as she pleases. She can take him wherever she wants, whether it's a concert, an event, or even just appearing on social media lives together. Having Ken jobless means he's at her disposal, and she knows that. He's become more of a support figure in her public appearances, someone who reinforces her image and protects her interests. Even with door dashing, it's possible that Gypsy didn't feel comfortable with him doing it, just like that with bartending. She might have felt insecure about the nature of the job, being out and about, interacting with different people. It could have been enough to make her uneasy. She might have worried that Ken would have too much independence from the connections outside their relationship, something that might threaten her control over him. And if she wanted him closer, what better way than to make sure he no longer has a reason to be out working? If Ken was jobless again, it would mean he was right where she wanted him, by her side, available whenever she needed him, reinforcing her public image and maintaining the dynamic she was most comfortable with. But what about Ken? Does he really want to be in this situation? If we look at his behavior in past interviews and appearances, the answer seems to be no. Whenever he is with Gypsy, especially in public settings, his body language often looks tense and disconnected. He rarely seems fully engaged, and his expressions sometimes suggest discomfort rather than genuine affection. Observers have noted how he appears distant, as if struggling with the reality of his situation. People even joke that he looked like her bodyguard in San Francisco, walking either too far ahead or too far behind her, seemingly detached rather than actively participating in their shared moments. It was almost as if he was just fulfilling an obligation rather than genuinely enjoying being by her side, making it clear that something was off. His mannerisms indicated an internal conflict. Whether out of obligation, guilt, or simply lack of options, he appears reluctant to be in the position he finds himself in. And let's not forget what Ryan said last year. When Ryan went live, he called out Ken for not having a job. He was visibly frustrated, pointing out that Ken was about to become a father yet had no stable income to support his child. Ryan even went as far as calling him a punk for relying on Gypsy financially. This criticism resonated with many on social media, where people questioned Ken's ability to be independent. The internet also pointed out that Ken's only real source of money seemed to be the lifetime paycheck, something that only existed because of Gypsy's story. The notion that Ken was financially tethered to Gypsy only reinforced the idea that he had little control over his own life, further fueling the narrative that he was being manipulated into a role he didn't necessarily want. Even more concerning was the idea that Ken's reluctance to step away stemmed from a deep-rooted sense of dependency, making it even harder for him to establish his own identity outside of Gypsy's influence. Ken's mom, Raina, has expressed frustration over how much Gypsy influences Ken's decisions. On another sad morbid life, she's openly discussed how Ken has been happy and stable in his job before, but everything changed once Gypsy got pregnant. He left his job, uprooted his life, and completely shifted his priorities in a way that seemed less about personal choice and more about Gypsy's influence. Raina's tone suggested she wasn't entirely pleased with the way things had played out, and now it looks like history is repeating itself once again. Ken, once more, seems to be sacrificing his own stability for the sake of keeping Gypsy happy, leaving many to wonder if he will ever truly be able to take control of his own life. The cycle appears endless. Each time he tries to regain independence, something pulls him back, making it increasingly difficult for him to break free. His current predicament raises the question: is he staying because he wants to, or because he doesn't see a way out? If Ken really is doing DoorDash and the league forces him to quit, where does this leave him? For Gypsy, it's simple. She gets Ken's full attention. But for Ken, it's a different story. While he'll have more time with his daughter, it also means he will have less independence. He's been struggling to establish his own identity outside of his relationship with Gypsy, and every time he seems to make progress, something pulls him right back into her orbit. We've already seen how uncomfortable he gets when he's constantly being pushed into the spotlight. He's not the type to enjoy social media drama or public interviews yet. When he's not working, he has no choice but to play along. his role in Gypsy's life becomes more about presence than personal ambition, and that's a dynamic that doesn't seem to sit well with him. And that's where things get tricky. Is Gypsy trying to take control again? Did she leak his job so he would quit and be around her more? Or is this just a coincidence? If Ken quits, he may once again find himself financially dependent on Gypsy, which could further solidify her influence over his daily life. But is that really what he wants? Would it give him more time with his daughter? Or would it just mean he's being used to prop up Gypsy's public persona? Whatever the case, Ken now finds himself in a situation where his next move will determine a lot, not just for him, but for his relationship with Gypsy and his role as a father. If he stays in the workforce, he has a chance to build a stable life for himself and his daughter, but if he falls back into the same patterns, he may end up repeating history all over again. What do you think? Did Gypsy have a hand in leaking Ken's job? Is this her way of keeping him close, or is it just another twist in their ongoing saga? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on everything going on.